The philosophy is don't let your genius create someone else's retirement.
I like that.
Yeah.
At least get a part. A piece of the action. Yeah, I hear you. Because it's a hamster wheel or a dancing bear, as you've said many times. And when you stop dancing, you stop doing your deals, taking the calls, or whatever.
Money stops coming. You stop dancing. You dance and they throw the money.
Throwing that cash.
You stop doing that. They're like, crickets.
Hey, I'm Joe Fier, and welcome to the Hustle and Flow Chart podcast. This is where we talk all about building businesses so they give you the freedom and fuel for your life. I'm not here to help you build $1 billion business, but I am here to help you create a business with systems that work for you so you can make more money than you need just by working part-time. You know, I was a chronic hustle mode kind of guy, and I want to share my experiences and mentors I've met along the way to help you reframe things to be the most effective as an entrepreneur. I wish I had this guidance and insight when I was younger, so that's what I'm doing here for you. Please share and enjoy.
I've been excited for this, and thanks for offering again, because it's been, I think, 2 years since the last time we did this.
I would guess, because we were remodeling this house and we were just starting. So my guess is it was 2019. So I think it's been 3 years.
It looks much different.
It does.
Yeah. And COVID has passed us, hopefully.
Allegedly.
Yes. Then gotta run. And I know there've been so many different programs you've launched. You've perfected a lot of the processes of them all. And I'm thankful I know the epic side of things. My wife, I think I told you, I gotta shout that out.
So cool.
Yeah. Her business, I mean, she's expanded a lot. I have as well on the things I'm doing. So I want to get into some of these programs you have. I know it's Epic, consulting for equity, some cool AI stuff you're doing.
Yep.
All that stuff is fascinating. Before that, I want to get into, and this is kind of the essence of the show and where I'm taking things, is how do we figure out, because we're all figuring out, who we are in business and how we can best apply ourselves and give value, but also fulfill ourselves. And the way I look at you is someone who is extremely expansive in the way you think. It's scalable. I mean, there's a reason why it's called Scalable, the company. But that's when I think of you, and I think a lot of other folks, they look to you for just the unique way that you use your brain and how that applies to not only business, but life. So I think it'd be fun to maybe deconstruct some of your story, even though we've talked about it a little bit, but what you think is relevant to what got you to kind of this lateral thinking and how that can apply to folks listening, knowing that everyone has a different way of being, and different aspirations. But I feel like there's like an awareness that you can maybe light some light bulbs here for us, and they can kind of apply some of this mental models that you work with.
Sure. Happy to help anyone.
Wherever that starts.
As far as talking about lateral thinking, I think that it's a conscious pursuit of thinking laterally that is really at the core of that. And I remember when I was a kid, there was a book that I found. I was a weird kid because my mother was she's a psych major, but she was very into Carl Jung and psychology and stuff like that. And my father was very into motivational things like Dennis Waitley and Tony Robbins and things like that. And so I had those influences and was reading all of that kind of stuff when I was a kid. I remember I did a book report on I'm Okay, You're Okay, which is transactional analysis psychology. But I thought it was fascinating because I'm a kid and I'm like, I don't understand, why communication goes wonky. And it had these 3 circles on one side and 3 circles on the other. And it was parent, adult, and child. And it said, when adult is talking to adult, things go well. When adult is talking to child, things don't go as well. When parent talks to child, it doesn't go as well. And that we're all of these things all of the time, but we're just playing one of those roles in each relationship that we have. Right. I was like, that's kind of, and in each interaction in each relationships that we have. And so I was like, that was really cool. And all of that stuff fascinated me. And as part of that, I found this lady, and I can't remember her name, but she had written a book called, I think it was called Drawing on the Left Side of the Brain. And it was about how I think left brain is creative and right brain is not, or vice versa. I don't remember. But one side of the brain is creative and one side is not. And that we tend to lean to one of those sides. And the more that we can draw on both sides of the brain, the better the ultimate performance in anything we'll have. Because it's really good to be meticulous and intentional but it's also good to apply creativity to be able to expand on what you're doing. And so I actually wanted to pursue that. And so I found this guy, Edward de Bono, who has written like 8 billion books about lateral thinking. I think the seminal one is called Lateral Thinking.
Okay.
So I studied all of that stuff and I was like, how do you bring this together? And at the time, it was kind of interesting because I was very fascinated by the stuff that my dad did, which was business and tax. And I was very fascinated by creative stuff. You know, there's a bunch of keyboards around here and there's about 5,000 guitars in the closet.
I got to take a peek before I leave.
Yeah. And that creative side, I played in bands. I wrote music. I wrote, poetry. I wrote stories. I studied English, to almost get a degree in it if I hadn't taken maybe another course or two. And I really like the creative side of things. I like photography, all of that stuff. And so I think that it was a combination of a happy accident of those two influences that I had of kind of business guy, lawyer, accountant, and my dad, and, psychologist, piano player, etc., and my mom. And that gave me both things that I saw interesting components in each of those, and I have pursued both of those quite a bit.
Right.
And so there's a guy that when we went to do my website, Dmitry Kozlov. Dimitri's company is Influex. I told him, I said, that kind of sounds like a disease, but never. He's so awesome. He does great websites, and he had done them for Frank Kern and Joe Polish and a bunch of other people. And I got him to do my site at rolandfrasier.com. And he said, we got to get Patrick Combs to do your story, your backstory.
Ah, yes.
And I was like, I don't know. I mean, that sounds stupid. I don't want to. But I kind of fought it. And then I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to surrender to the process and I'm going to do it your way because, you obviously know what you're doing. And I was so happy that I did. We went and had a couple of tequilas and talked. And then he said, okay, I think I got your story. And I was like, what is it? And he's like, you'll see. I'm going to send it to you.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
No pressure.
So then he sent it to me, and it was basically that I'm 50% creative and 50% business. And so I think that if you're thinking about thinking expansively, you have to, I think there's probably some people, maybe Elon Musk was gifted with expansive thinking, but he talks about first principles, which is a physics thing, about let's go back to the beginning and assume we throw everything out and then say, how do we approach this from scratch? He might have frameworks for doing that, but I think you have to be a bit intentional in saying, I am going to try to think expansively. I am going to take any situation and anything that I get, I'm going to take it and I'm going to look at it this way. I'm going to say, well, what if it was this way? And what if it's this way? And what if I moved over here and looked at it from that way? And how do I turn it around? And then how would so-and-so look at it? And are there frameworks that I could apply from different people to look at it? Like consulting, you have Boston Consulting Group has, one framework, and McKinsey has 7 S's, and then there's Six Sigma and, and SWOT and all of these other ways that you can look at business.
Right.
And so if you start studying all the different frameworks and then say, well, what's the same and what's different about those? And how does each one add something to what I'm looking at? Then you'll ultimately come up with all kinds of different things. And the other thing that I thought was fascinating was I was reading about, I think it was Salvador Dali and one other, Nikola Tesla, and that both of them realized that their most creative, intense, world-changing thoughts happened when they were in this kind of state of half conscious, half unconscious.
Right.
And so Dali, I think it was, used to sit in a chair with ball bearings in his hands. Just as he would fall asleep, they would drop so that he could wake himself up again and hold them. But that was how he got into the creative space. And some people...
Something just pops up in that
Some people
moment,
will drop acid. Steve Jobs would only, he's like, when he interviewed
once
people,
a year or something.
One of the questions was, have you ever dropped acid? In a positive way, right? And some people do, ayahuasca and everything else. So I think that that ability, whether through substances or sleep states or intentional pursuit of that, and then creating different ways to look at different things, all of that is really critical to how you think multidimensional.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to ramble.
I love the ramble. Yeah, there's always interesting veins. And this is where, it's almost getting out of our minds, the thinking minds. Not always. There's a time and place for them, but to find that flow between wherever the creative lives, I don't know if it's our heart or wherever, something around us that we allow in that's not so regimented in the thinking side of things.
We so often say, well, I could do that, but then how am I going to do that? And then you instantly roll it out.
Stops.
Right? And so then you cut off the creative thought. Whereas if you can simply suspend your disbelief about needing to know, then you'll probably think of 20 other things. The last thing I wanted to say was I absolutely think significantly more creatively when I am in motion. So like I'm on the treadmill.
I noticed that. Yeah.
And I swear my best thoughts are then, and then when I'm kind of lying in that half asleep, half awake in bed are probably the times that most things pop into my head. And they say that the reason for at least that half conscious thing is that you need to take problems and move them into your unconscious to solve them when your conscious can't solve them. Because your unconscious will keep working on it. And so that if you've ever had those moments where you were like really focusing, trying to solve some challenge, and then you're, making a salad and it's like, this is how you do it. Well, that's because your unconscious is working on it the whole time. And I think that's what happens in the sleep state is your conscious mind is taking a back seat. When you're working out or doing something that requires some focus or is using other parts of your brain, that your subconscious then has a chance to plug in and work on the thing and then bring it back to the conscious. And so those are all I think, interesting things.
There's a lot. And it's almost like creating an open space or an open loop in our minds and not trying to close it too quickly. I've had a friend of mine, Nick Peterson, on the podcast, and brilliant mind. And he stresses on this is like, okay, the open loops are good. And it's not trying to figure out the solution right away or force the how. It's let it kind of open up, or, maybe it develops even wider. It might be scary and uncomfortable, bring some anxiety because it's uncertain. But
the more you do it, the less you care about that.
Correct.
And it's a habit of uncomfortable uncertainty, that then becomes comfortable uncertainty. I guess it's like you go from unconscious incompetence to, ultimately to conscious competence.
Yeah, uncertain competence, I guess. Yeah.
It's what is it? To conscious incompetence, you're aware that you're messing up. Because the first time you didn't even know you were messing up. Now you're aware, conscious incompetence. Then conscious competence, where you're basically doing it, but you've got to think about it, to unconscious competence, where you're doing it right all the time and not even thinking.
Yeah,
right?
It's just second nature.
And I think it's probably that way, with this stuff too.
I think so. Yeah. Is there a way, or do you have mechanisms to capture these thoughts? I mean, now you're probably in this unconscious competence level about most of the things.
I'm so incompetent so many times. I like for capturing things, if I don't write it down, and this is like dreams. If you ever wake up and you remember a dream for about a second and then you don't think about it consciously, you'll like, I had this weirdest dream last night there. What was it? And you're like, I don't remember.
Right.
But it's like you lived it in your mind. And so if you wake up and write it down, then you'll remember. And so it's the same thing when I'm in that half asleep, half awake state and I think of something that I think is good, then I need to so I'll pull out my iPhone and I'll take a note on it. If I'm on the treadmill, I'll either, while I'm walking, try to write it down or I'll do a little voice memo to myself or something like that.
Yep.
Because if I don't, it will go and I literally won't be able to remember it by the time that,
you're
it's
done walking around. Yeah, for sure. Do you, because what I've been big on journaling, especially lately, and it's interesting, and obviously there's a flow of how we can probably dump whatever's inside our brains out. And maybe it's not a specific loop, but do you do any practice like that? And I'll just say where I try to get to when I get to pen to paper journaling is to drop the thinking almost completely so I can somehow, I don't know where the words are coming from, but they flow out and then my hand goes even faster.
Right.
But there's no resistance, like there's no friction. I know that's a big thing of what you talk about too.
Yeah, I can get myself to journal. It takes too much time. So what I effectively realized is that doing things like this is my journaling because I'm on video and audio quite a bit. And so I'll hear myself say something that I think that I want to remember. And I'll ask Ryan, I'll say, hey, can you get the recording of that podcast? Because I like that thing where I talked about that. And then I'll try to watch that again. I'd like to repurpose it for content, but it's kind of my way of taking notes is that there's enough of my life that's recorded anyway.
Yeah.
But the act of writing down something physically takes so much time that I just don't have the time to do it. Now, Tony Robbins does it. So, and he's a lot busier than I am. So
maybe
I'm sure that's just a mental limitation, but for me, it's just, some things work for some people and some things don't. That one doesn't.
You find your flow. I mean, and through music, I'm sure, I guess, I'm curious about the music side of things. Do you have, is that something that you naturally go to, or is it more like now with everything going on, is it more of a have to, or do you just know your brain?
I want to. I really do. I want to have more time to do that. And I have actually consciously said I'm going to carve out more time to do that. I have a piano in the other room so my way of doing that is making things convenient. So music Electronic music, which is, one of my favorite things, is not particularly convenient because you have to turn on lots of switches and then you have to power things up and then they have to connect and then there's always something that's not working. So convenient thing number one for me was have a grand piano that's in the house that I can literally just walk over and sit down and play.
Acoustic.
And then clean all the cat boxes and things away from it so that they're not around. I keep fighting with my wife about it. It's like, no, I don't want anything that I have to walk around to get to this. And then this I got and put speakers on, which I don't know if you can see or not. So I have a keyboard here and it's all self-contained. So you hit two buttons and it automatically plays. There's no like amps and connectors and preamps and mixers and all that to turn on. But a lot of it is convenience. And so I have tried Evernote and Notion and a whole bunch of different things, and I can't get myself to do it. And then I also don't feel like I would go back.
That's my problem too. Yeah.
So like as I find things, because I am a voracious reader, and and so my 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. time is basically spent reading, I guess it's 100 newsletters that I subscribe to.
Okay, so emails
different
mainly.
Things. And then at night, I will watch YouTube videos. And then Twitter has come into my life, interestingly, as a very, very good, succinct source. Those tweet storms do, those threads man, there are some pretty smart people on there. And so I was looking at my open apps, the ones that I use the most the other day. And I was thinking, it's really interesting because I never go on Instagram or LinkedIn or Facebook ever.
Yeah.
And I go on, and if I looked at what was open, it was Twitter, because there's all these people that have these smart, and it's very, very, because of the character constraint, it's very specific. You can read like 10 or 12 tweets about this thing, and I've got great information, and it gets me thinking, right? And YouTube, because the visual and audio components of that, and there's a lot of really good stuff on there too. TikTok, I haven't found to be as helpful. Not that the people that are on there aren't as smart, but I haven't made it into a habit yet.
Yeah.
And
I think the best stuff finds its way to Twitter anyway. That's what I found.
Yeah.
It's from TikTok.
Yeah. But it was really interesting that I was just thinking the other day, because I don't consume any social. I hear people, we actually, the meeting we were just at, people were talking about putting themselves on a diet of social.
That's right.
And Ryan Dice, one of my business partners, was just saying, I had to put myself on an inputs diet because I had too many input and not enough output. And so I needed to get some things done. And I'm like, I don't consume that at all. I'm looking only for things that either give me pleasure in that, synthesizer music, or I like photography and I'll watch videos about that stuff, or I'll be looking to learn.
Yeah.
And other than that,
purpose driven.
Yeah. And I don't want to live other people's lives
for sure
through them ever.
Has it always been that way, like with the social? Because I know for me, I feel like during the pandemic, I took myself off of all these platforms, like Instagram, Facebook. I don't want to go there.
Yeah.
It's more like I should show up every now and then to share some stuff because I know my people are there.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be there.
Well, but so that's what I do. Like I share quite a bit.
Sure.
But it's because I'm creating content all the time, and I'm trying to automate that as much as possible by having people around me without having like a, Gary Vee team that a cloud around you of photographers and stuff. Yeah, sure. But I do enough things that naturally create content. And then I have a content team. So I've got, I think it's like 5 people that basically then take all that stuff and go do it. So it is posting, but it's not me. Right.
You're not the doing.
I will read my DMs because good things come out of that and I can go through them pretty quickly. I never read comments, never read, other people's social, and have no desire to. Maybe when it first started, I did, a million years ago.
Sure.
Same thing with the news. The news is to me absolutely distraction. I'm going to hear about whatever is important through, from somebody else when I'm talking to them, I know who won the Super Bowl, but I didn't watch it, I know who was in it, but
watch the TLDR version. Yeah.
So I think it's just like, how do you create the filters and you just focus yourself on the things that you want? To me, I'm very clear. I have my North Star. My North Star is I want more deals that I have ownership in. And I call those consulting for equity things. And if something doesn't take me towards my own personal entertainment, my desire to give back and support other people, or my North Star, it's not in my life. And that is liberating. I mean, it just like,
your constraints.
Yeah, it takes all the stuff that doesn't matter out of my life.
So do you have any advice for someone who might feel like they're still looking for the constraints? Maybe it's the North Star as well. Any hints that would help them kind of clarify that?
I like filter better than constraint, but do I have a tip for somebody that is looking to put the guardrails on the information that comes in their lives, but has not yet found the North Star? Is that the question?
Yeah, that would get us there.
I think it's hard if you don't know where you're going to know what to focus on. But I don't think that it's hard to identify the things that are distractions. And so I would start and say, what are the things, no matter what I'm ultimately going to do, I kind of have an idea that I want this outcome from this year, the next 3 years, 5 years from my life. And I know that there are certain things that will absolutely not take me in that direction, or that will absolutely take me in the wrong direction. And so if you can identify those things, those would be the first things to filter.
Yeah, it's almost like start with the things that you don't want.
Yeah.
Yeah, then that's probably easier to list out or somehow drum out of our minds
The
anyway.
things that you know will not take you towards whatever the ultimate things that you think you may want. Like, I don't know, I might want to be a movie star, and I might want to be a rock star, and I might want to be a professional speaker, and I might want to be a wrestler, and I might want to be a, champion hot dog eater. Okay, great. We got 5 things.
Yeah.
Right? Now, what are the things that will absolutely frustrate your ability to get there? Well, things that will affect me health-wise in a negative way. So maybe I should, take all of the smoking things out of my life,
hot dogs,
right?
Well, yeah.
That's
I like that.
the best that I could think of.
Yeah, and that's
But as you get more focused, as those filters take the distractions away, you will move faster and faster and faster. The momentum will increase, and it will build on the past momentum to push you in the direction you want faster, which means more things will identify themselves to fall away, which means that then you'll go farther and faster. I think it's going to snowball up.
Yeah. And I'm a big believer that momentum can go either which way. Yeah. It could take us away from our goals if we're not aware and conscious of these things, or it can go the other way that we want to. And it takes time, and it's a lot of work. And I mean, you've been priming your mind since childhood, luckily. Not all of us are blessed with parents and an upbringing like that.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, so it's I don't think it's ever too late to start, but it's definitely being patient with ourselves and being conscious of it.
And at the risk of being canceled, I'll say that also, while I am well aware of, the privilege of being white male in the United States, born into a upper middle class family, et cetera, it's having the ability to know what you want and not make excuses out of life and blame others or your situation, because I've watched people from all kinds of the depths of every challenge you can imagine do great things and live great lives. And I think it's about accepting responsibility and saying, I am not a victim of the circumstances that I found myself in. I am the person who is in charge of making things happen.
Yeah.
And if I choose to lay the blame and the responsibility for me not getting to where I want to get on the world is against me, I was disadvantaged, etc., then that will be a self-fulfilling prophecy. And if you choose instead to say, I'm responsible and I can overcome, I'm going to use that as my anthem that's going to drive me because, screw those, white men that run the world or whatever. I'm going to go and motivate myself to get further ahead. Then those are the people that you see who make change in the world. It's not you are held back, it's that you fail to overcome.
Yeah, I think you're right. You're spot on, man. And yeah, we all have that fire, or we can search for that fire, but whatever that is, that's what matters the most to get our voice out there in action. Saying all that was amazing. And I feel like there's so many actionable items in that dissertation or whatever it is there. I want to talk about how you've been applying this in the business realm and some of these programs you have, but also like how they apply to this conversation. So Epic has been around for a couple years now. 2 or 3.
3. Yeah, well, not quite 3. Yeah.
It's getting there.
About 2 years and I think 9 months. Yeah.
So the challenge, I know you've done, countless of those things. Yeah. That thing's like an oiled machine.
I think that we're on like the 30th or 31st of the Epic challenges, but we've done over 100 now across all the different events.
So it's working. And I know from within my household, I've seen it work.
Yeah.
And through my wife, approaching someone who is already out there and essentially following your plan in Epic and then owning that company for no money down, but providing so much value. And now it's just tremendously grown. I mean, I'm sure there's an exit in the future. I don't know when. I know it will.
Well, and also that is the first deal that she did.
Right.
And that is lighting her and you up saying, this is kind of cool.
Yeah.
And the more you do, the more you will do and the better you will get. And, and the more efficient you will get. And that will just, be a flywheel to new things.
We were listening to Business Lunch. Shout out to you and Ryan.
Thanks.
Thanks for that. And I like that you have a co-host now too. I love the back and forth.
It's fun. Yeah.
It's so much. Yeah. It's a little different for me now, you know.
Yeah, you kind of want to be in the other direction. But, they're both good because also it's hard because I can't, it's like we have to coordinate our schedules.
Of course.
And that's not as easy as you would like for it to be.
I love how you manage your calendar and time. That was an episode I listened to for selfish reasons. And I love how you always take like, oh, let's put someone on the calendar. How about a text? Or it's almost like one step back. Always.
Yeah. Meeting. I'm anti-meeting.
For sure. That's why when I got on your calendar, I was like, oh.
We are meeting synchronously now. And to me, the more asynchronous my life can be, the happier I'm going to be because I can get stuff done faster.
That's right. And it's so true. And I've applied that for a long time because of your thinking. And that was a good reminder. But yeah, we were working out yesterday morning, Heather and I, my wife, and we're listening to you guys. I think it was Elements to create a 7-figure per month business. I think it was from late last year. So 2-parter, definitely recommend everyone check it out.
Thank you. Yeah.
And yeah, it was just lighting us up with other ways and how we can always package up what we're doing to serve others in a more scalable manner. And I don't remember all the specific details, but that's where I feel like every one of your programs, the challenge is a great way to start with Epic. I want to get into consulting for equity as well.
Sure.
And what that looks like, because selfishly, I'm doing a lot more consulting. So I'm curious, and I have a lot of folks listening that are in that realm. All these things, just one little tidbit will get that momentum and going. And
I like a couple of things. One is, so the challenge that as soon as we get done here in a few minutes, we will do the second day of, which is called the Paid for Life Challenge. And it's paid for life because that's what consulting for equity is. You will get paid at least for the life of the business and possibly for the life of yourself when you do whatever you do that one time, because you can do it and get paid for it.
Yeah.
And you might get paid a lot. Maybe you get paid, somebody I was talking to yesterday and she said, I charge $250,000 and upfront and then 50% of the first 3 events that people do. And I help them with challenges, not their difficulties to be overcome, but the method of having this multi-day event that we call a challenge.
An event.
Yes. Yeah. And then after that, it's going to be license fee. And I said, that's really cool. But ultimately that's a cash grab because that's what you're going to do is you're going to get paid $250,000. And she thinks about $1.5 million over the 3 events. It's okay. So you're going to get paid $1,750,000, which is a lot of money to add value to those people, which is going to create their brand and an ongoing thing that they're going to do. And I promise you from my experience, I can tell you that you'll never get that 10% from 99% of the people because they'll find reasons to decide that, well, I was doing this and it's not that hard. She didn't really show me that much stuff. And, and she's like, well, actually, the first deal I did like that's already kind of, and I said, so what you're doing is you're getting good income, but you are not getting paid for life. And if instead you were to go in and say, I will do these things, but I'm either going to acquire the company and do it myself, that's straight out acquisition, or I am going to come in and I'm going to do the things I do. And I'm going to charge you that $250,000 because you need to have skin in the game. And I'm going to charge you the 50% of those things, but I'm also going to own X percent of the company. I'm going to get a license, I'm going to get a royalty. I'm going to own ownership, that part of the company. Well, now you're building wealth in addition to the income. And it's that combination of the two that to me makes all the difference.
Yeah. And that's the reframe I think we can all have. And I guess let's get into that. I am very curious about how you approach, I guess, a consultant like that. It's that reframe. It sounds like right off the bat.
The philosophy is don't let your genius create someone else's retirement.
I like that.
Yeah.
At least get a part piece of the action. Yeah, I hear you. Because it's a hamster wheel or a dancing bear, as you've said many times. And when you stop dancing, you stop doing your deals, taking the calls, or whatever.
Money stops coming. You stop dancing. You dance and they throw the money.
That cash.
You stop doing that. They're like, crickets.
Yeah. So so what do you do in the consulting equity? You have a whole, I guess, walk us through. Is there a challenge that we can get through?
There is Paid for Life Challenge.
So
which is the one, and we're at consultingforequity.io. IO because you're in and out of the business, right? You come in and you do your thing and you get out, but you continue to get paid. That's the idea. And so that's a challenge, which is free. And I just kind of walk through all of the steps of, what is the concept and the opportunity? What is the mindset that you need to have? And why does it make a difference to do things this way? What is the impact on your wealth? What is the consulting for equity, business model? And then we talk about the different frameworks for how you can consult for equity, because there's lots of different ways to do it.
Like 197, I believe.
Yeah,
maybe more now.
And then how do you get How do you go about getting your clients from all the people that are already, the easiest place to get clients is all the people that are already saying, hey, can I pick your brain? Can I take you for lunch? Can I buy you coffee? Can we hop on a call? All those things that will drain your schedule.
What's your answer to that, by the way?
Mine is always, well, it's twofold, right? So my first thing is, can we hop on a call, let's say? Then it's not to the point where I can pitch them that they should do a consult. It's, well, I'll tell you what, why don't we talk here, because that's coming through social or email or something like that. And if it looks like it merits a call, then I'll happily hop on a call. Okay. And then if it looks like it's just straight out asking for advice or something like that, then I have a text replacement in my phone and I'll just do HDC for half day consult. And it auto populates the response across whatever app I'm in to say, the way I do that is with a half day consult of up to 4 hours. We'll basically take a look at where you are right now and where you want to be, and then we'll work on closing the gap between those two. The investment to do that's $25,000. If that sounds like a fit, let me know and I'll send you my 1-page consulting agreement and wiring instructions. That's it, right?
Sounds like you've done this before.
Yeah. And I remember that less and less because it's all auto text now.
Of course.
But that's basically that. And I have a few, like I have HDC exit, HDC growth, for the different paths, things on the paths that they might want. But that's all auto texted then. And I don't spend any time with them. That's it. To me, it's like, I'll listen to one, I'll go back and forth maybe 1 or 2 times on a text. I won't give advice. I'll only clarify the ask. Right.
Okay.
And that's actually important. So
the situation they're in.
Yeah. So because it would be hard to say, they might say, I get this shockingly a lot. I found this company, Roland, and it's this, this, and this, and I just need to know how you would structure that.
Yeah.
Well, the way I do that is with half day consults, right? Like I had a guy that we both know who reached out yesterday and he said, hey, I've got a deal on my company with somebody who wants to come in and buy it. And I'm afraid I'm going to make the biggest mistake of my life if I do it wrong. And I want to talk. I'll talk to him, because I know him, but, and I also know he's a real guy. And also I will get on the phone and say, tell me what's going on. And he's like, this, this, and this. I said, well, here's some things to think about. And if you would like for me to help with that, then it's something we can talk about. And then he's like, I absolutely want to do that. And so we're talking today. Right.
Awesome.
So that's kind of the two distinctions. I won't give advice. I will get clarity so that I can then say, okay, well, I know I can help you. And the way I do that is, and then with all the things
Got it. So would you say, for any consulting in general, it's always clarifying first. It's almost like, I know Frank Kern used to always talk about it. It's almost like approach it like a doctor. Ask a bunch of questions.
Yes.
And so it sounds like, and I'm sure you have this just in your mind, but are there any frameworks or ways you would approach how to clarify someone's situation?
Yeah, there's a few. So there is Brené Brown's, which is paint me a picture. So she basically says, okay, so we're going to work together and we're done. Paint me a picture of what it looks like when we are done and you've got what you want.
The end result. Then.
The end result, right? Dan Sullivan has one called the Dan Sullivan question, which is, if you and I were to sit here having a conversation a year from today, what would have had to have happened both professionally and personally for you to be happy with your progress, right? Yeah. And that's, again, that. And then mine that I use most often is, hey, if you could wave a magic wand and everything was done, what would that look like? That is to figure out what is the end result, because I need to know what their desired end result is. Is it reasonable? Because I've had people, like, before I started doing that, I would have people that we do a deal and they'd be like, hey, man, we've been working together for a couple of weeks now and we haven't hit $100 million in sales. And I'm like, you were at 3 million.
Yeah.
It's been 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Well, I was looking for explosive growth. I'm like, okay, but I mean, that, like, and that I ended up giving that back. Yeah, the expectation was not aligned. And so you have to get aligned on your expectation to be sure that you're also aligned on what you feel the path to get there is. As soon as I know that the thing they want is reasonable, or I can help them see that perhaps it's not going to be quite what they think in the time that they think. And I do think fast, right?
Oh, yeah.
Then I can say, hey, it's probably just not a fit.
Yeah.
Right. Because I'm only going to disappoint them and they're going to be mad. And then they're going to tell people that, well, I had worked with Roland and he didn't do anything. All that matters is perception. Right.
That's right. And expectations come with those. And So I think that's important. And I think the thing too is to avoid giving a consult. And that's something that some of my business partners, both present and former, would do when they were talking to people, is that they would get very consultative way too early when they're having somebody. And the only thing you can do there is A, waste your time, B,
give them a bunch of great advice that they have no investment in, and therefore there is no value to it, and they won't follow it. They won't have any urgency to following it.
Yep.
And they'll come back probably and ask you the same things a year later. And I get tired of that. And so to me, the solution was this paid consult to filter all the people that aren't willing to invest in themselves. And I get people all the time that are like, well, I just want to, do something first. And then if that works, then I'll, happily pay you. And I'm like, man, I'll tell you what, I totally understand that. And it's never an arrogant, you need to pay me. It's always look, what I've found time and time again is that if somebody invests in themselves, if they're ready to make that, they believe enough in my ability to get them to where they want to go. And they believe enough in themselves and what they've got that it can get to where they want, then that's the person that I will work with the best.
That's a yes.
And the person who is not willing to do that, it's just not yet right for me to work with that person.
Mm-hmm.
So I totally respect and understand that you want to, have the ability to get some advice and do stuff first. It's just that it has never worked out for me.
Yeah.
So, that's
you're saving them a lot of time and resources as well.
And so that's also, in sales, it is a non-manipulative, unintentional takeaway. I am saying no. And that makes them want it more.
Exactly.
But I'm not saying no to make them want it more. I'm saying no because I have literally found that every time that I've done it the other way, it's just doesn't turn into anything.
You're filtering on their behalf for you.
Yeah, and I'm protecting my time.
Of course,
right?
Yeah, you know where you're going. This is going to save a bunch of people time because I know I feel like the more my podcast gets out there, the more people we chat with, all of us, the more we're aware and on top of mind of others. The influx of, hey, can I pick your brain?
Yeah.
I had just yesterday.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, this is the exact approach.
And it's fine. Like there's nothing wrong with that. They are seeking help.
Yeah.
Knowledge, clarity, understanding, assistance, whatever. And that's good because they're telling you when they say, can I pick your brain? That is honoring you in saying that 100%. You're somebody who has something that I believe can help me out.
Yeah.
And you're a generous person and you want to help those people out. And I am also and want to. It's just that having a framework again, right? It all comes back to frameworks. Yep. Having a framework where you can say, I absolutely would love for you to pick my brain, even though that sounds really disgusting.
Very painful.
I'm happy to do that. That's why I think that like those words are magic. The way I do that is, it's like, this is how I do that. I actually have a process for you to be able to get what you want.
Yeah.
Here's what it looks like. It does require, and I don't have any problem telling people this because I just know it's true. It is, you will not get from me nearly as much if we were just to sit here and have a conversation right now as you will if I, can clear my calendar to have the time to have the headspace to focus 100% on your problem, your challenge, your issue, and a block of time that's long enough to not have the whirlwind of everything else I'm already doing come in and blow me out of the thought course, right? The second thing is that I also know that you will have no urgency or need to get an ROI on your investment in listening to me if you don't also have a monetary investment.
That's right.
If you have a monetary investment, there will be urgency and commitment on your part. And honestly, if I was just going to talk with you and you were going to go out and take everything that I can share you, which will absolutely change your business, I do know how to solve your problem. I mean, I'll tell people that too, because I'm very confident at that, right?
Yeah.
If I do that, you're going to go off and you're either going to do it not at all, or you're going to do it kind of halfway. And you also won't have the clarity of me being able to get you back on course when you're off, because I can't possibly communicate to you in one sitting what you need to do. So the way that I do it now is I do 2 hours as an initial meeting, and then I'll do 2 hours of follow-up for my 25K.
Okay.
I used to do 4 hours, and after 2 to 2.5 hours, people were like, hey, man, can we just, I had too
Brain
much.
is swelling.
And yet I did it with Kent Clothier.
Oh, yeah.
So we did a co-consult with one of his people down at his office on Monday, which was day before yesterday. And it was a 6-hour thing that he had said.
Wow.
And I was like, man, that's a long time. And he's like, yeah, that's how I do it. And I'm like, okay. So I went down there and I saw right away, they had some accounts receivable aging and they had some other things. And I was like, right away, this is what you need. This is what you need. This is what you need. And what they thought they needed was capital, but what they really needed was some changes in the way that they process their accounting, right?
Internal. Yeah.
Which sounds boring, but for them, it was something that could 4X their business without having to get capital.
Results?
So which means now their business goes 4 times as fast. That's a pretty good outcome,
pretty
right?
solid, yeah.
I got there in about 20 minutes. And then we said that back to them about 3 or 5 times.
Yeah.
And, clarifying. And then it was 2 hours done. And so
about 4 more hours.
Kent's like, hey, we go to lunch. I'm going to run to the restaurant. And when he went away, I was like, you guys get what you need to do. And they're like, oh yeah, we get it. I said, is there anything else that you need right now to do? And they were like, no, I don't think so. I said, because I'm happy to stay here. And I know Kent, has allocated the time and everything. I think you know what you need to do. And now you just need to go do that. Why don't we stop here if you want, and you go do those things, and then you can do follow up.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're like, oh, that'd be great. And then Kent came back and he's like, they're like, yeah, I think we got all we need. And he's like, okay, fine.
It's rolling. Clear my calendar.
But that's it. Like if you can see the problem and you have the knowledge to satisfy what the customer needs, then you can solve any problem relatively quickly. It's longer than 2 hours. It really is.
Yeah.
If they know their stuff and they come prepared, you ask them the questions that you need to ask, you can get done in 2 hours, and then give them more than enough for them to be full of stuff to do until you come back.
Yeah.
The other thing I'll say about that, and that to me is a great example, is so I have lots of skills that Kent doesn't have, and Kent has lots of skills that I don't have.
Sure.
And so co-consulting is a great way to be able to handle any client that you want. So let's say that you're interested in fitness equipment. So you have a fitness equipment company that is having some challenges with manufacturing and lines of credit and supply chain. And you don't know anything about any of those things, but you do like to work out and you find, that stuff interesting. Well, then you can still serve that client. That can still be a consulting for equity client.
Yeah.
All you have to do is go out and find one of the many, many, many people out there who are super smart and experienced, but charge pennies on the dollars for what they know.
Yeah.
You co-consult with that person. You hire that person. Let's say you do a $25K consult. Then you go find that person. That person's like, yeah, man, it's $500 an hour. And you're like, it's a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to need for 4 hours, though, but it's probably only 2.
Yeah.
So, okay, $1,000 I'm going to give you. You just got paid a $25,000 and brought the best expert on the planet to the table.
Yeah.
They can come by Zoom. They don't have to be there in person, and you don't either. But I'd say
it's probably best to do it.
Yeah, I'd say 60% of my things are on Zoom, and you've now got team 1, the best team ever. But you pocketed $24K, and this other person got their full $500 an hour rate.
Everybody's happy.
And then you pitch the consulting for equity deal, and now you've got equity in that company, and you coordinate whoever else you need to come and solve those challenges.
You can always go back to that person for any...
I say maybe you need to retain that guy now for a $10,000 contract. Well, you're still $15,000 ahead.
Just on the initial deal.
On the initial.
Yeah.
But you've also got equity, and now you've got distributions, and you only do this with profitable companies. So, that to me is magic. You are the... What is it? The ring master?
It's who you know, right?
You're bringing all the craziness of everybody in. Yeah. I don't like puppet master because it sounds so manipulative, but as I see puppet master as like,
little evil.
But you're the host of the show.
Yeah.
And you're bringing all the experts in to share with the audience who's going to consume that and then go do whatever they need to do with it. But you can also bring in operational people and do that, right? You can bring in financial people. You can bring in whatever they need. And because you are the answer person and the coordinator of the solutions, you are the choke point that will stop them from being able to get what they want if they don't bring you in.
They always go to you for them to distill their information. Yeah, figure out, okay, what do I need or who do I need?
Yeah.
And then you coordinate that.
Yeah.
And it's not about what we necessarily need to know or do. It's how we can discover, what can solve this person's issue right now.
Exactly.
And get them to the result, and we could bring other people in to help.
Yeah.
I love that. That's probably one of my biggest takeaways right there.
It's cool.
It's huge.
Yeah.
And it's not all about just us.
It's not.
Expert.
No.
I don't want to be the expert, really.
Let's
just be that guy. Yeah.
I just want to be rich.
Yeah.
Help people.
Let's do it.
If I do those 2 things,
it's a reflection of how resourceful you are and how much value you're given anyway.
Yeah,
so
it is.
Let's wrap up, Roland, with where should people go? And because I know you have the Epic Challenge, you have the one for consulting with equity, for equity. You have AI stuff as well. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
I guess rattle stuff out super fast.
Yeah. So for the things we were talking about with Consulting for Equity, we call it the Paid for Life Challenge. It's at consultingforequity.io. For acquiring businesses with little or no money out of pocket, we have a thing we call the Epic Challenge. Epic because it's ethical profits in crisis. And it's in crisis not because you're dealing with turnaround companies that are losing money or you're trying to prey on people in a predatory way to take advantage of them. It's that there are business owners who are motivated by different crises that are going on in their lives. And maybe crisis is strong, but to them, it's a real crisis, right? So if they're getting divorced, if they have health problems, if it's heirs that inherited a business from somebody else because of death, if you're absolutely bored with what you're doing and burn out, if you're, those are all life crises for entrepreneurs that they go through when they have successful businesses and when they don't. And so when we find somebody that's got a successful business that's also going through one of those crises that makes them a motivated seller, we have the ability to serve them by meeting them where they are, giving them a fair price, but it's not market. It's not the same as if they had unlimited time and could market and sell it and everything, because they're motivated. They want to move on, right? So we give them a fair price for the business, and then we basically acquire, optimize, and sell. So I call that AOS, right? It's like the acquisition operating system. Acquire, optimize, sell. And that's at epicchallenge.com is the challenge that we do on. That's a 5-day free challenge. And epicnetwork.com is where the everything kind of sits. And then the AI thing is really just how do we use ChatGPT and all of the other instances of AI that are coming out. And that's a rapidly evolving program, obviously, to be able to make our lives and particularly our businesses. And that's AIpoweredexpert.com. And then the last one is, and these are all related, as you can see. The last one is, okay, well, how do I've got my business now, or I like the idea of helping other people be able to sell their businesses. And so we have a brokerage that we own called Hello Exit that helps people sell the businesses. And so we have a course that's called Exit Ready at exitready.com that basically you can either become certified in how do I help people go through the exit process and then become a broker with us at Hello Exit. Or if you've got a company that you want to sell, then we'll help you get that company to its maximum value and then help you sell it.
Help you with the sell. Wow. Yeah. So you have everything there.
It's pretty fun. Yeah.
I mean, I could see it's like a big playground for your mind.
And the next place we're going is we've got Capital Class that's coming out, which is acquiring with money and other people's money, not no money out of pocket, but how to raise money basically.
Yeah.
And then we've got, and do a fund. And then we've also got entrepreneurial investing, which is basically how do I invest in companies like this because the returns are so much safer and so much higher than you can ever get in the stock.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Roland, appreciate you. Thanks again for having me. Yeah, let's do it again.
All right. That's what I got for you today. And remember, it's not all about living to work. It's all about working to live, if you need to do the work. But, work can be fun, and it should be fueling for your life. So, if you enjoyed what you just heard, if you got some nuggets of wisdom that you want to share, or you're just noodling on right now, please go tell others the way that people find this show and how you can help others get their aha moments is through word of mouth. So if it is telling your friend, telling your family, sending an email to your list, writing a review, or whatever it might be, everything helps. So thank you so much for listening to the Hustle and Flowchart podcast, and I will see you next time.